Welcome to another episode of King's World. Okay, so we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit fun this week. Again, going back to these are my opinions. This is what I think. Has nothing to do with anybody else's opinions. This is my show, and this is my opinion. So, this week, what are we going to talk about? The top 10 influencers in the history of bodybuilding. Now, this could be people, events, things, anything that I think that changed the course of bodybuilding through history, through personal experience, through all the ins and outs of bodybuilding that I've went through for the past 30 years. So, let's get going. Top 10 influencers. Boom. Now, we're not going to go from this is the top and this is the 10th place. I can't do that. There's too many variables involved here for me to go and say which one is the most influential to the least. I can't do that. So what I'm just going to do is just list the top 10. We're going to start with number one. And number one on my list, of course, is Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Arnold, all right, what did he do? What's the main thing that he did for this sport? He took it from taboo. You know, bodybuilding was very taboo. Everybody's, ooh, what is that? Ew, what is that? You know, it was nothing that was mainstream. Arnold took that and took it worldwide to the mainstream. He took risks. He came out of nowhere and he said, okay, Hollywood, I can't talk right. I look a little weird, all these things, but you know what? I'm going to conquer you. And he did. Arnold is a special human being. He has what many people like to call, and I've heard this before myself, he's got the it factor. Some people just have it naturally, or you don't have it. You know, it's not something that you can work on to get. You know, it's like when someone walks into a room and they're the center of attention, it's just the it factor. Some people just have that. Arnold is on top of a mountain when it comes to this it factor thing. He came, he saw, he conquered the world, the governorship of California, Mr. Olympia, you name it. He conquered Hollywood, the biggest star, and he owns probably more real estate. People don't know this about Arnold, but he probably owns more real estate in this country than anybody else. I mean, he is a billionaire because of his real estate holdings. People just don't know that about Arnold. He's a real smart guy. So, number one on my list, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger just completely changed the sport. Number two, Mr. Chad Nichols, the original bodybuilding guru. Yes, you know, there was the Amines and the Miloses and the Dan Duchaines and all these people at the very beginning, yes, but it was Chad that brought it all together. Okay, his wife, one of the greatest Miss Olympias of all time, Kim Shavesky. Chad at his peak, at the very beginning of where the legends of this sport started to come out, which was the 90s. He had Nasser, he had Ronnie, he had Flex, he had Cormier, and he had Dillette. I mean, come on, guys. I just named 5 Hall of Famers. And who was number 6? Me. You know, I had the guts, I had the balls to come up to him after the 1998 Nationals, and I talked to him and I said, you know, you're this legendary Chad Nichols. You know, back then, guys, we didn't have the internet and all that stuff. It was just a rumor. He was like a myth that I heard of. And then and I said, you know, can you please teach me, you know, give me some of your Jedi knowledge? And I was lucky enough and blessed enough that he put me on a mission. I passed, and he took me on. So I became the sixth person on that list, and behind all those legends. And again, Chad, he came along and he brought the science of bodybuilding to the forefront, where you can actually look at at a coach and listen to what he's telling you to do, even though it goes against everything you should be doing. You think you're not supposed to be eating that burger because, oh, you don't eat burgers, you know, a few hours before a show. It was Chad that came along and said, no, eat that burger, and here's the science behind it. So Chad Nichols changed the sport, the original guru in bodybuilding. Third person on my list, Mr. Rich Gaspari. Why Rich, the Dragon Slayer? I'll tell you why. Because he was the first guy to come along with extreme conditioning. He changed the sport because Rich came along and said, okay, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you fibers. I'm going to show you cross striations that you've never seen before. Rich was one of the original. I mean, he was the most famous, but one of the original people to come on stage with striated glutes. That was his thing. Rich came and took the level of conditioning to the next level. So people who had to step on that stage now had to say to themselves, uh-oh, Rich is coming. We got to take it to the next level. Rich Gaspari took conditioning to the next level. Number 4 on my list, the Shadow, Mr. Dorian Yates. What did Dorian do? I think it's internationally, and I think it's a worldwide fact that we all know. Dorian bought mass. He was the first guy to come along and show us ridiculous, dense mass. Before Dorian and those crazy black and white pictures, all the top IFBB professionals were considered big, freaky, and all that stuff. But no one ever had suspected that the human body could go to the levels that Dorian took it. Dorian took mass to the next phase. He is the original mass monster, and it was because of Dorian's pushing the limit that the Nassers came along, the Ramis came along, and the other mass monsters, the Rollies, are now on stage. It all started with Dorian Yates. Much respect. Number 5 on my list, insulin and growth hormone. These two things completely changed bodybuilding. If you go back and look at the pictures, if you look at the history of bodybuilding and look at the 70s to the 80s going into the 90s, into the 2000s, you notice the difference in the looks of the physiques. The insulin gave that massive, massive size. The growth hormone gave the ability to eat and convert all that food, and the science of sucking in and the glycogen and the whole thing with the peptides. The combination of insulin and human growth hormone completely changed the look of bodybuilding and took it to the next phase of size and conditioning. Now, some people will say it took it too far. Some people say it was necessary to go to that next level. It's a toss-up. I experimented with both, and to be honest with you, there's the good and there's the bad. And you just have to understand to meet in the middle somewhere. Right now, it's like this. It's the wild, wild west. People are just going, and the shit that I see in the gyms with the kids, I mean, it's absolutely out of control. But that's why the physiques in the bodybuilding division is starting to look like. Okay? It's not always great. There's some good and there's some bad. Insulin growth hormone changed the look of bodybuilding. Number 6 on my list, the greatest, Lee Haney. Lee came along and showed the world size plus shape. It was always the big guys were all, big and, girly. You walk on stage, they look like these freaking monsters with no shape and big, just body parts thrown together. Haney came along, and for his time, I think the maximum that he weighed on stage at a Mr. Olympia was 258. 254 to 58. That was unheard of back then in the 80s. He was the Ramy of today, but with a body that you just looked at and said, how is that even possible? Haney was beautiful, just flaring out, and that's the reason why he won 8 Olympias in a row. Haney came along and showed that you can be a big man with shape. If it wasn't for Haney, Leela Bharata would have won 4 or 5 Mr. Olympias. Bharata just came at the wrong time, at the wrong place. But Haney proved to all of us, I remember as a kid just watching him, that size and symmetry is attainable. Lee Haney, unbelievable. Number 7 on my list, the internet. Wow, okay. So many things. Of course, the internet changed the entire world and brought the whole world together and all that good stuff. But let's just talk about what it did for bodybuilding. You know what? In my opinion, I've said it before, many other people, you can agree or disagree. I think the internet destroyed bodybuilding. In a sense of, there was a time when Ronnie Coleman will come into your town, or Kevin Levrone will come into your town to guest pose. You don't know what they look like. You don't know where they've been. There was no internet. You just know them from the magazines and on the posters of the show saying, here's your guest poser, come check this freak out. You have no idea the level of excitement, and it was like goosebumps, and you heard the thump of the walking out on stage. I mean, I'll never forget, I took my training partner, Frank, to a first Body Rock Classic, and we're sitting in the front row, and he kept saying to me, man, I'll see you every day, man. You're a pro bodybuilder. What's the difference between you and him? And I'm just looking at him laughing. I said, hold on, you'll see in 1 second. Ronnie started walking down the steps, and I'll never forget Frank's face. He looked like he just saw literally 18 ghosts in front of him. He just couldn't believe it. He was, What the F is that? That's all he kept repeating over and over again. The anticipation of seeing somebody like that, that's gone. And what do we have now? The contracts are gone. The Muscle Tech superstars, gone. The Weider superstars, gone. Why? Because some jackass has 2 million followers on YouTube. Or some woman has 10 million followers because she records a whole life. And I mean, it's the real superstars, the real athletes, the real professionals, they all got screwed. Why? Because they're living in the world of social media. And one thing that I've learned from my own personal experience, and take this to heart, people, what you see on Instagram and what you see on Facebook is fake. It's all fake. Those people are not that great. They're not that happy. They're not that successful. They're going through the same crap that you're going through. It's just this fake world that people are starting to look at right now. And it's unfortunate because it's destroying a lot of lives. It's making people think that it's, like remember the whole thing when that the models are too skinny and the girls are getting to become bulimic. It's the same concept right now. That's what's happening. These kids are looking at these fake worlds on the internet and thinking that's real life. Unfortunate. Of course, they will learn the hard way like most people learn. Life's not that easy. Internet. Messed up bodybuilding. Number 8 on my list, the new divisions. Bikini, classic, physique, and we'll add 212 in there too. I really don't like to include 212 with the new divisions. Why? Because you've always had the smaller, you had a under 200 pound Mr. Olympia, Franco Colombo used to win those, and Frank Zane, and then you had you've had that already. So let's just stick with the bikini, classic, and physique. What did it do for the sport? It completely brought a new genre of people into the sport that really didn't want to look like bodybuilders or want to go to that extreme. Am I happy for what it did for our industry? Yes, I am. Even though I put down like the physique guys and Dorian puts down, they call them the men's bikini division. No, I respect what they do. I just said that in my personal opinion, bodybuilding is, if you don't have legs, forget about it. It's all about the legs for me because I know the torture it takes to build legs, but that's another story. What did they do? It brought up this whole new genre, opened up, and the promoters started getting paid. Finally, money started to flow. But what was the collateral damage here? Bodybuilding, the men's open division. A lot of the good people, the good genetics and the good freaks, they just decided they don't want to push it that far. So what do we have now? We have the spongy open division with the beautiful classic division. Which way are you going to go? Every show that I've been to lately, all the local shows or even the junior national level shows or even the national level shows, the best looking bodies and the best athletes are not in the men's open division. They are in the classic and the physiques now. Why? More attainable. Again, change the complete atmosphere and outlook of the sport. Number 9 on my list, the great Mr. Vince McMahon of the WWE. Okay, why do I say Vince? Vince and bodybuilding, you're probably saying to yourself, hey, King, what you been smoking, man? That's wrestling. No. There was something that Vince did in the 90s. He came out with the WBF, World Bodybuilding Federation. And before then, this is a little history lesson for you kids out there, bodybuilders weren't getting paid. There were no contracts. The Weider organization you just had prize money and whatever you can scrounge up from guest appearances and what have you. It was Vince McMahon that came out and went to the top IFBB professionals and said, here's a $150,000 a year contract. Back then, $150,000 a year is almost like paying them $400,000 now. And these guys were like, what? Of course. So they were jumping. There was a time where the IFBB didn't understand what was happening, and they made a middle of the night decision. I know this story because I've heard it from the horse's mouth, where the president of the IFBB went to the Weiders and said, we are about to lose and we're about to get shut down. The IFBB will be no more unless we start paying our athletes. So it was then that they started to reach out to all the pros, all the top professionals, and said, okay, guys, Vince McMahon's offering you X. Here's our offer, plus you're going to get this and the benefits of the IFBB, and we'll work with you guys on guest appearances. And next thing you know, the athletes started getting paid. Vince McMahon was the catalyst for us as professionals to start getting paid in bodybuilding. Vince, God bless you. Thank you. And number 10 on my list, the unbelievable Mr. Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie came along and took Lee Haney's shape and Dorian's size and took it to the next level. Ronnie was the first guy to step on stage at 298 pounds, but bone dry shredded. Again, if you go back and look at the 2001 Arnold Classic, I don't think you'll ever see anything like that. Ronnie was just on another realm, just another level of craziness. I just remember sitting backstage and I was sitting down, sucking on oxygen. He was sitting right next to me, sucking on oxygen. I'm just looking at him in awe. And he looked over at me and then, you did good, boy. You did real good. Started sucking. I'm like, holy shit. That was Ronnie Coleman actually giving me my props. One of them, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Just one of the things that I will never forget. Someone who came and just absolutely dominated and again changed the sport, because then we all said to ourselves, well, can't just be shredded. Again, can't just be big. Now we have to be shredded and big. And that's why you have the physiques that you have today. And again, I'm telling you right now, you'll never see another Ronnie Coleman. It's not, I just can't see it happening ever again. Maybe 50 or 100 years from now, maybe, but not now. Okay, so there it is. My top 10 biggest influencers in the history of bodybuilding. I hope you agree, or if you don't, that's fine. Write your comments down on the bottom so I know what's going on with you guys. So, want to thank you guys tremendously for the response that I got from last week's episode, the transformations. Wow. A lot of you guys contacted me, a lot, and I did my best to get back to every single one of you in a timely fashion. And a lot of you signed up, which again, I thank you very much. And as I said before, I only take the serious ones. If you're not serious, don't waste my time and don't waste your time, because I put 110% into getting you guys ready. If you want to contact me, email's right down here. Send me an email, send me a current picture, let me know what your goals are, and then we can go back and forth and see if you can be a part of my army. One last thing, guys, one last thing I want you to understand. It was a great episode and the response was amazing, but there's so many more. Like, I didn't even go to the women and the girls who come to me for their transformations. I have to contact them to see if it's okay for me to post their pictures, if they're all right for the before and afters, because I don't want to just put their business out in the world. If I do get an okay from them and some of the other athletes that I've trained, I'm going to do a part 2 of the transformation so you guys can get even a better sense of different types of physiques that I came to me and I transformed into something beautiful. And Thanksgiving is coming up. And Halloween is coming up, and we have a lot of good stuff. And, I'm going to try to get some good images and some more gym shots. I know you guys have been asking about that. King, get to the gym and demonstrate some of these things, the King Kamali presses or the King of Squat or any of the other things that I've been talking about. Yes, I will get to the gym. I will demonstrate it. Just got to understand, it's very, very busy time for me right now. And being a dad is, it's my favorite thing in the world. And these kids, they just demand daddy time. So, love you guys. Keep the questions coming. And as always, peace, bitches.